A warm welcome to you on the morning call. Israel has taken a diplomatic measure against countries that played team with the United Nations Security Council resolution condemning their settlements in Palestine territories. Israel's government instructed the foreign ministry to cancel all aid programs to Senegal, which also tweeted through their ministry official Twitter account. Now, Senegal joined hands with Malaysia, which has no relations with Israel, Venezuela, whose relations with Israel came to an end in 2009, and New Zealand, whose relations with Israel is said to be different from Senegal's. Now, the relationship between Israel, a Jewish state, and Senegal, which is 90% Islam, has always been a surprise to experts.
The Senegalese diplomatic position is not clear. In addition to compromising the chance of a peace between Israel and Palestinians, colonization and occupation encourage hate and violence, which affect Israeli as Palestinians. Two people call to coexist in peace and security. This is affirmed by Ambassador Gojouessis, Deputy Permanent Representative of Senegal to the United Nations, a discourse that seems widely hailed by the population in the civil society and the Senegalese political class. The country's media talk about a rise of patriotic fever. In an open letter relayed by several newspapers, the president of the Movement for a Stand in Africa did not fail to write the attempts of threats to Israel against Senegal.
Right now is Momar Dieng. He's in Dakar, Senegal. He's a journalist and a political analyst at the same time. Good morning, Momar. This decision by Senegal to support the United Nations on the scrapping off of the establishments by Israel in the West Bank. What do you take of it?
I think that Mr. Netanyahu has only himself to blame and his politics. I think that the fundamental line of his policy is in the conflict between Israel and Palestine. Since he has been there for some 10 years, is a refusal of any serious initiative. In general, I think that voting is an illustration of the exasperation of the international community in relation to the radicalism shown by Israel on these issues. I think that the fact that the United States has abstained, the fact that other permanent members of the Security Council has been endorsed, this project shows that there's something evolving in the management.
Now, Momar, the move already made Israel recall its ambassador who is established in Dakar. Could you expect another drastic reaction soon?
I believe that Senegal took a very courageous decision. I think that we should welcome this act of Senegalese diplomacy, which was awaited. But at the end of the year, I think it's a good surprise because Senegal has had important responsibilities in the Middle East process, particularly in the Palestinian issue. I will remind you that for almost 40 years or 35 years, Senegal has served as a chair of the UN Committee for the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian people. I think that Senegal is in a position that puts it in a straight line with what are the responsibilities. The Palestinian movement has always been a subject of attention of regimes who succeeded in Dakar, whether in the time of President Senghor or the time of President Abdou Diouf or the time of Wade. I think that Palestinian has a long ally in Senegalese people despite the Israeli diplomatic offensive in Africa and in particular Senegal for several years.
Now, Momar, we know that Israel's relationship with Senegal has a lot to do with also its presence in the West African bloc of the continent. But is the relation between Senegal and Israel as much as important it is to worry about the consequences of this current fallout?
I think it was economic relations that were still taking off because since 2011, the volume of trade between the two countries has changed considerably. I only have the figures for 2014-2015. I think that the amount of trade between the two countries reached about 50 billion CFA francs. It is not nothing. And out of that 50 billion, I think the amount of Senegalese exports to Israel was about $10 million. It was not much, so the balance was totally deficient against Senegal. On the Israeli side, the most prosperous sector has always been the technological field, with many small technologies that some Senegalese companies use.
qu'utilisent certaines entreprises sénégalaises.
On the side of the Senegalese, exports have always focused on certain raw materials. Now, because of this affair, I think we need to reread what trade between the two countries can be from now on. I do not think there are any major consequences for Senegal. Now, what can be worrying is the level of security intervention of Israel in Senegal. That is to say, what is the level of technological aid that the state of Israel provides or brings to Senegal in terms of security? On this plan anyway, we have concerns.
Au Sénégal en matière de sécurité. Sur ce plan-là, quand même, on peut avoir des inquiétudes.
Merci beaucoup, Moma Dieng, in Dakar, Senegal.